we're both members of the Producers Guild. That's how we met each other at the Guild, you know. Our motto was bringing the team together. And so over the last 10 years since I've been a Guild member, Ryan and I have always run into each other. I know he ran the mentoring program at one time, the Producers Mentoring Program, which was a very successful program for producers. And Ryan and I have been working together now for a few years on several different projects. And he was in Louisiana, was supposed to be here last night, but plane delays, and so he ended up driving in from LA this morning. I know he's a little exhausted because he's got a lot on his plate, but I'm happy and honored that he could come and speak to us today about our topic of how producers and writers work together through the various stages of development and production. So, further ado, Ryan Westheimer, ladies and gentlemen.
How's everybody doing?
Hey, good morning.
Great. Good. So I'm probably going to do this a little differently than probably your past speakers, as I've spoken to Jay about what you guys have previously dealt with. You know, development executives, writers, you know, they probably have a lot to speak about that are specific to what you guys are doing. For me as a producer and working with you guys, I can speak for hours and not be anything related to what you want to know. So I'm probably going to actually do most of this as a Q&A to kind of you know, answer your questions, because there's so many different areas, you know, that we can focus on, especially being writers, and especially today in today's market, you know, with you know, writers being producers and directors and multi-hyphenates, and depending on, you know, what you want to do, every situation, every genre within the media, everything is different. I literally have a friend of mine who's not even in the business and wants to start developing different things, and asked me, how do I do a television pitch? And I'm like, for what? For who? For, you know, is it a half hour? Is it an hour? Is it a comedy? Like, every single situation is different. And as we have gotten to the digital age, you know, a lot of things can be done ourselves. And honestly should be, because that is what is going to get you the recognition and validity to be able to kind of open it up into making these connections and being taken for real. So I'll start with a little bit about myself. Which I love talking about myself. I'm typical of most producers, by the way. Yes. So, yes, I'm a producer. I started 26 years ago in Orlando, Florida, as a PA, production assistant, physician's assistant. And my first job, I mean, talk about starting from the bottom. I started as a my first job, craft service PA on World Wrestling Federation, did Disney MGM Studios, where I literally just all day, for days on end, walked around the wings of the stage and refilled coolers. Very glamorous. And then years later, after a lot of hard work, you know, and moving up, you know, got to become an AD, a UPM, and spent most of my career as a line producer. The difference between me as a line producer and a lot of the other line producers I've worked with coming up, and even this day of people I know, is if you don't know what a line producer is, it's called a line producer because the budget has line items. And you're watching the line, you're towing the line. That's your responsibility. A lot of line producers really are about, you know, logistics and money, and that's it. For me, it's always been, I'm a filmmaker. When I was a PA, I was a filmmaker. You know, when at AD, it's always for me, the perspective is although I may be in charge of the money and the schedule and the crew and everything that happens, none of that matters if you don't have a good end product and you don't put it on screen. So it's not about saying no, it's about saying yes, but how? So that was the natural transition, still line produce, into start creating my own projects, and, you know, making movies and television and things that are my ideas, or an idea that's brought to me, or this, that, and the other. Years and years in the making to put together a film fund with my partner Jay, to be able to actually do more and grow, just like everybody here wants to do. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. People ask me all the time, like, what are you looking for? Anything different, anything good. Saying something's good is perspective, so maybe that's the wrong choice of words. But it's interesting. I think, as I mentioned, with the digital age, it's such an oversaturation of content out there right now that, you know, I have a project that I've been trying to get going for about 3 years, working with the writer along the way the entire time. And I literally just had a conversation with him a month ago because we went out to cast, and script's great, story's great. So similar to other supernatural thrillers in the past, I can't get the lead actress to get excited about it. So I had the conversation, I'm like, there's nothing, responses from all the agents, everything was great, but there's something that's not right. And so I spoke to the writer, and again, it's been 2-3 years. I go, we gotta relook at it, because there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not different enough. And that's one of the biggest points I can make, is because there's so much out there, writing a story, creating a story that's similar to what people have seen, never gonna do anything. Especially if you are someone that hasn't, you know, established career and an agent and you know, plenty of projects that you've created that have been produced or greenlit. That's the angle you always should start with right now, is it different? There's, it is being recorded, so, oh my God, I can't believe I say this, but I mean, there's a lot of things that are out there right now that are really great, but they're talked about as they're the most magnificent films you've ever seen. Like, oh my goodness, like, example, just recently, A Quiet Place. Good movie. It wasn't like reinventing the wheel or something, just so brilliant that it's gonna span the test of time. But you know what? It was freaking different. Get Out. Again, it was a really good movie. Was it just something that was like literally people are gonna talk about for 100 years? No, but it was different. And that's what makes things special. That's what makes audiences wanna go see things, is, have I seen it before? And if I haven't, is it interesting enough that now I wanna go spend my hour and a half, 2 hours, whether it be in a theater, or on your phone, on your tablets, on your TV? Is it something that grabs my attention, goes, well, that's different? Because especially with this millennial generation, you know, it's, you know, attention span is short, you know? As I start here, raise your hand if you have written a script before. Okay. Raise your hand if you have had any of your scripts produced. Oh, okay. Okay. What about a script you've written that you produced or did yourself? Okay, so we've got some filmmakers, some multi-hyphenates in here. So, as a producer, in approaching, I mean, first, it's again, you have to get access, right? But first, you gotta write it. Before I even go there, the introduction kind of mentioned something about, you know, sharing ideas and making sure you're protected, although not specifically about that. First thing I'll say is that you do a treatment, a synopsis, anything, before you send it to anybody, unless it's your mom. But even that, she might steal it too. I don't know your mom. No. Get it copywritten. It's not difficult. You can do it online. Protect yourself, even before the script, and then when the script is done, you know, copyright again. It's again, so much piracy, so much, you know, with digital and hackers and this, and people steal shit. By the way, I should preface, I speak like a sailor, so if I offend anybody, I'm sorry. Being in the business, I don't have to wear a suit and can do whatever I want, so it's kind of made me worse. Always protect yourself, that's the first thing. And once that happens, then feel comfortable to go out, because we all get excited about our ideas and what we're doing and want to get it out there, and years of developing a script and writing, and in a minute you're done. I have had multiple friends that are writers and producer directors / that literally have written scripts, put it out there, and they were taken. Since I'm being recorded, I don't want to actually say which ones, but some of them, like one movie in
Just for
particular.
your information, this will never go anyplace except for the people that are hearing it.
Except I'm being recorded.
No, but I'm saying, but that recording is not gonna go anyplace. Only paid members will have access to.
Oh, I understand, but again, just like I'm telling you to protect yourself, I don't take chances. No, but like one movie made 150 million and became a franchise with 3 movies. It was my buddy's scene-by-scene idea. Television show, another buddy of mine who's a producer writer, pitched a network. They turned it down, and that pilot that wound up being on the air, and it went 7 seasons with a very famous actor, was literally a scene, almost word for word. The rest of it was a little bit modified, but almost word for word. The thing is again, you can sue, but if it's a big network, a big studio, you might win and make a lot of money, and you'll never work again. Unfortunately, it's very fickle. That's the way things work. So protect yourself. And by the way, these are people that protect themselves. It's a bit of an ugly business, but it's also one of the greatest business in the world. If you know how to approach it. All right. So again, some writers who haven't actually finished scripts, some sold some scripts, some made your own. I think I'll start by just kind of going where I left off, which is, what am I looking for? You guys have learned or have been taught, or through this, seminars, organizations, how a script is structured. I don't need to talk about that. You guys already know that. But I will tell you, in the first 10 pages that I read, if it is not telling me who those main characters are, and I get to know them by page 15, not knowing where we're going, and I won't go past that just to find out what the conflict is. And by page 30, if I don't get the conflict, I put the script down. I'm not going to even go further. It's a waste of my time. It's really important. There's a reason that there's a 3-act structure. There's a reason that you really want those characters to be defined, especially your main character, quickly. Because if not, from my perspective as a producer, I'm not going to have an audience that gets hooked. And if I don't hook my audience, that audience isn't going to want the journey, and they're going to walk out of the theater or change the channel or something. So again, it's not worth my time. That first 15 pages, if I'm hooked, I will literally sit there until I get through it, and probably want to call that writer immediately after I finish, because it's so fresh in my mind. Again, make it different, make it stand out. There's so many people who want to be writers and directors and producers and everything in this business, as you guys know. Focus on standing out. We all have our lives that are different than everybody else. And they always tell you, write what you know. Whatever you write, whether it's what you know or something that you're passionate about, again, just make it different from your unique perspective. Everybody's got a unique perspective. I don't know you. I don't know what your life is, but you send me a script. If I read it, I'm gonna know you, because I'm gonna know your perspective. The writer that the project that I told you about, we're actually going back in to redevelop. I didn't know him from Adam. I get emails from a writing group that somehow I got on their email list and never read it. It basically breaks down different genres, different writers, and kind of a synopsis of what their scripts are, and if you're interested. I never read it. For some reason, one day, I'm like, I'll take a look. And I found this idea. And I'm like, wow, what a great idea. I don't want to do it, but it's a great idea. So I contacted the writer and I said, what else do you have? And he told me the one, and I'm like, ooh, that one. Send me that. And I read it, and we worked together for about a year before I brought on a director, and worked together for another 6 months. And again, like I said, still to this day, am working with that writer. If I get it made, or I get it, to the point where I can get a couple cast members on board, and I get it made, I will work with this writer to do rewrites and this, that, and the other, and keep them involved. Not all producers are like that. I like to keep the writers involved because it's obviously their original idea. It's gonna might modify, change a little once the director comes on board or the producer has a different bit of perspective, or you get a studio instead of independent financiers, and things have to change based on commercial viability. As much as we know we're doing art, unfortunately, it's called the movie business, television business, and there has to be some sort of compromise to make sure there's an audience so you can sell it. I have been called called the devil by one of my very close friends because I'm a producer and he's a writer-director. And it was after a lot of wine. Everything worked out, it was fine. But one of my best friends. But I mean, the perspective of like, oh my God, all you guys think about is money, and it's like it's about the story. I'm like, let me ask you something. So if you create a movie or a short film or anything, and you are so proud of it, and nobody sees it, was it worth it? Yes, art for art's sake. I'm like, okay, so that's the differing perspective. For me, if I believe in a project, and sometimes it takes 10 years to get off the ground, for me is that everybody, as many people as possible, should be able to appreciate that and get to see that art. And the only way to do it is to make sure it reaches people. It ain't about money for me, but yeah, if the box office is big, if the sales are big, that means more people see it. And for me, that's what's important, because that creates opportunity for the writer, for future scripts, for writer-directors or writer-producers. They give opportunity for the future. And what are we all here for is to be able to do this forever until we're 6 feet under, which is what I call retirement. We'll never retire. So that's kind of how I look at things. Again, every producer is different, every situation is different. A lot of producers buy a script and they're done. They hire somebody else to do the rewrites. They don't deal with them at all. A director comes in, does his or her pass, and writer's not involved at all. Others really like to work with writer. I've done a bunch of work for Crown Media, which is Hallmark. And Hallmark, they get a writer to write script. Those writers do all the rewrites. Sometimes the director comes on, but the director to kind of work with the writers. Very few of the directors that come on that rewrite just do it, and the writer is not involved. So again, it really depends on the situation as far as the involvement of the writer. Again, in television, completely different, right? The writer has the power. They say film is a director's medium, television is a writer's medium. All the executive producers or all that you see in those credits are all writers. Unless you're looking at like a Mark Gordon. But if you don't know who that is, you can look him up later. But he's the producer and executive producer on so many television shows and films, and he's a non-writing producer, but that's his production company. So they develop it all in-house.